Hello, everyone. Good evening for those who are here in the US. It's 7 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, and it is 8 p.m. in Brazil. If you are a Portuguese speaker, please bear with me. I am going to give you some translation in a minute. But if you are an English speaker, I'm so happy that you are here because it's my first time interviewing in English for Tati Talk show, and I have the pleasure to have someone with me that I truly admire. Se você fala português e consegue entender inglês, não se acanhe, mande suas mensagens, mande suas perguntas do jeito que você conseguir escrever. Não importa se você tiver problemas para escrever, se você tiver dificuldades, se quiser, escreva em português e eu vou traduzir. So, well, guys, today I have a very special person with me. I have Candice Reyes. And let me tell you how I met Candice. It was a little, more than 1 year and a half ago while Candy and I were working for the same amazing company. And Candice was an HR director and she was my boss's boss. So if you think about it, you will just say, oh, maybe Candice would not available to Tati or to other people in her team. Candice was responsible and oversee the talent acquisition team in HR and also the learning and development team, in which I was part of it. But Candice catch my attention since the first day because although she was extremely busy all the time, although she was not my direct boss, she always found the time to come to my desk and ask the most amazing questions ever. She was a truly coach and she always made me think about it. And now I have the pleasure and the gratitude to know that Candice is making available her coaching skills and her leadership skills for the whole public, to everybody who wants to learn the art of leading by our roots. So I give you Candice Reyes. Hello, Candy.
Tati, how are you?
I am great. How are you?
Good. You made me want to speak in Portuguese. The whole time I was listening to you, I'm like, oh, I wish I could speak in Portuguese right now.
You know what? I truly believe if you try it, you are going to be able to speak in Portuguese. And let me tell you something funny before you introduce yourself to the audience. You know that candy in Portuguese, when we say that, we always think about sweet. Of course, because we have candy as a sweet thing too. So I like to tell people when I mention your name that you are as sweet as the name mentions. But you knew how to be very tough too. Tell me, who are you, Candy?
Well, thank you for that. And thank you for that introduction. It's always humbling when you have to sit here and listen to someone else talk about you. It's not necessarily something that I like to be in the center of attention. So I appreciate all the kind things that you said, Tachi. So who am I? I will tell you, I'll give you a few roles that I hold and maybe just a little bit about who I am.
Yes, please.
First, I'm a wife. I've been married for 20 years to my husband, Tom, and we have 4 amazing girls, but they are not little. They are grown and 18, 21, 30, and 31. I have 2 grandsons.
Oh my gosh, this is unbelievable.
Oh my gosh, I know. And they're 3 and 9, and they're absolutely amazing. So I start with that before I even share anything else about me, because really that is part of my values, part of who I am. I'm very family focused. Mm-hmm. And those are the first things that come in my life before anything else. But above and beyond that, I'm an educator. I teach at Oakland University and have been there oh gosh, over 12 years teaching in their human resource development program.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm also a leadership coach and just a leader in general. And that comes last because I feel like most importantly, I'm a servant leader. I'm here to actually just help others do what they do best.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you ever in your career thought about being a leader, or this just something that just happened to you? And if it was something that just happened to you, how it happened?
So I will tell you, when I was younger, I was definitely wanting to be a leader, but probably not for the right reasons. I just wanted to have a title. I mean, it seemed
Okay.
like an important thing, people with these leadership titles. And so I've always wanted to be in a leadership role, but it was when I actually grew and matured and went through the process of becoming one that I truly, truly figured out what it was really about. It
Mm-hmm.
wasn't what I thought it was when I was a teenager. And as I've grown and really gained more experience, I've truly realized it's just about helping other people, and
Yep.
really about a title or a role that I hold. It's about just being in a position to help people.
So, do you think this? I don't know. We have been listening a lot. We have been learning a lot. People just teaching us or maybe showing us that bosses are different than leaders. So, do you really believe there's any difference between being a manager? I would not say boss, but being a manager who needs to manage the tasks, and also being a servant, a leader who people who are going to follow. Do you think there's any difference, or because you discover leadership is not just about a position, you discover that maybe both are the same or there's differences?
Yeah, I think there's a different school of thought. I think people can manage tasks and they can manage what people need to do. But I think a leader separates you. You can be a manager and still be a leader,
Mm-hmm.
right? You don't have to be differentiated. I think when you really truly are a leader, people want to follow you, not because you have a title, not because you are in a position that you hold, but it's truly because they have respect for you, that you are able to influence them. You're able to gain this followership by, what you do and how you operate with them.
Yeah, and I experience you as a leader, so I got to tell people here that you showed me that you are a very true servant leader, the way you just mentioned. But I am curious to know if you, in some point in your career, you did this on purpose. You just realized that you would do this more because you thought was important and a right thing to do, or you believe you are a servant leader because of your profile, the way you see the world, because you per se, you know what I mean?
Right. I will say, when I first was in a position to lead people, I did not always start with servant leader. I thought about, oh, what has to be done and how do I get it done in the right way, in the quickest way. And it wasn't always about how do I help others get it done, and how do I encourage them to use their strengths and really grow while they're doing these tasks. It was over time that I learned that. And when I stepped back and I really started studying leadership and really studying what is servant leadership, and also leaning into my values. One of my values are giving back.
Mm-hmm.
I truly love giving back out in the community and doing things for other people. And when I really started to think about that, well, why don't I just lean into it? And I started to actually show up as a servant leader a little bit more when I leaned into part of who I am and part of the values that make me.
I want to just know more about leading from your values, but first I want to just be the devil lawyer here and ask you, do you believe every time in your career, or maybe with people that you work with, being
Mhm.
a servant leader was always possible, like, or was something that sometimes was too romantic and too utopic to really be?
Yeah. I will say it's not always popular, but being a servant leader doesn't mean you have to come across soft. It doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do. I could be very tough on situations and tasks, but still get the right things from people. Did I do it when I first started my career, and have I made a ton of mistakes? Absolutely. I've done that and I failed at it. But I think if you truly lean into it, it's not just something that's the nice thing to do. It's the right way to get work done, and it's getting it done by people and through people in the right way and with the right intention.
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you 100% because I personally do not believe that we need to be harsh on people to get things done, but I also do not believe that we have to be soft all the time. And I saw this on you while I was, in your team, because sometimes we have to be a little harder on people, a little harsher on people to get things done. And also because we have the situational leadership, right? People must be lead in a different way. What do you think?
I think you really truly have to understand where people are at on your team. And if you really know your people, you're going to know, who do I need to give more of my time in coaching to? Who do I need to just step back and see what they can do because they have the experience? So it really does look at situations and look at also where they're at in their career and with the role. So absolutely, I believe in situational leadership and that concept coming into what you do.
And if you could give some kind of practical tip to people who are with us here or maybe watching later, do you ever measured how much of your time you were able to be in the coaching mode, and how much of your time you believe would be realistic to be in the coaching mode? What I mean by that is, in my personal experience, I believe we have to find, let's say if we call our time 50-50, I would say that more than 50 of my time would be coaching people in a many different ways. We are not talking about doing one-on-one conversations your whole day, but things like you did, like approaching people in their desks. And the other part of my time, I would do the operational tasks, because sometimes as leaders, we are not just leading people. We have to, do the operational tasks. Have you ever measured in your career how much of coaching you gave to people?
I would love to say that I sat back and measured it, Tachi. That would be the right answer, but it's not the truth. I haven't sat back and measured it. But as I think about that and I reflect on it, I think coaching comes in all the time, and it doesn't have to be a long, lengthy conversation. If you're familiar with the book Help Them Grow or Watch Them Go, it gives you the idea that we can have these 5-minute coaching conversations with people. And it's just these small questions that we can start to ask people. And it doesn't have to spend an hour conversation to be able to have that with them. So I think there's coaching that's involved in all aspects of our day as a leader. But the answer to your question is no, I haven't measured it, but I would assume that it's quite a large percentage of time. The other thing I would say is, as you just start to manage people, I found that I spent less time on coaching and more on how do I manage my tasks, how do I manage my day, manage my team's day. And then as you really go up the ladder into different roles and you have more experience and your teams get larger, you spend that much more time coaching and on strategy than you do on the day-to-day tasks.
Okay. It's a nice way to think about it. So you are saying that the more you go up to the hierarchy, let's say, you have more possibilities or chances or opportunities to coach people instead of being operational.
I find that's what we should be doing. Do we always do that as leaders? No. I think sometimes we can lose sight of that. But at some point when you're actually leading larger teams, they're doing the work, right? What we need to be spending time on as a leader, especially as you get up higher in an organization, is really understanding what is the strategy, the vision I need to communicate, and how do I coach my people so that way we can all get there together. and really help them to understand how to lean into their strengths, understand who they are, and remove roadblocks along the way.
I think I will kind of mix two questions here. And
Okay.
one would be, yeah. I would like you to tell us about the root leadership, because you guys, when I started this live today, I mentioned that I'm very happy that Candy now it's making her experience available to the whole public, everyone who wants to lead by their roots, to take some coaching sessions or mentoring. So when you gave this name, is that really connected of what you were just saying about leading by values? And okay, let the second question, behind. Just tell me about the root leadership.
Okay. So for someone that might be tuning in right now, they're probably wondering root leadership and in what way are we referring to root? So it's ROOT. And so when we look at the logo that I have for my business, it is an actual tree with roots. And how this started is, one, I will tell you that I'm a fan of nature. I absolutely love it. It's where I actually manage my stress and I get out and just kind of step out into nature. And that's always been my calming place. And I've always been fascinated with trees. And so I've always had this connection to that part of me and realizing that I love that. Over the last year or two, I've been on a journey of really just exploring more of what do I want to do at some point in my life when I'm not in leading a team in a corporation. And I went down this path of really just understanding what that was and what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And what came about from that was this idea of what is leadership? And if I want to coach people, what is it truly that I want to coach them on? Because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of leadership coaches.
Yes.
Out there. So many.
Too many.
There's so many, and even more so now, right?
Yes.
Now that we have access to tools like this, I mean, we have coaches for everything right now. So how do I separate myself as a coach, and how does root leadership fit into that? And what I really focused in on is how do you lead from actually who you are and not just the leader that everybody else expects you to be.
Oh, yeah.
When I started as a leader, I felt like I had to fit into a mold of what everybody else said I was supposed to be. And I made a lot of fails because I was doing that and I was trying to be something I wasn't. So root leadership is all about getting in touch with who you are at your values, your experiences, your communication and your styles and your personality and just who you are.
Yes.
And if you can get into touch with those roots, you can show up and lead in an authentic way. And that's really what I focus on, leadership coaching and development to help leaders lead from those roots so they can show up and lead others authentically.
Candy, first I loved the name and I love the way you love, because maybe I am kind of a little bit tendentious, because I really believe in what you are just doing and what you are saying. And the funny thing while you were talking that I was just wondering here is that we as leaders, especially now that we just said that people are just pursuing to be more a servant leader than just the manager or the boss, we as leaders, we always talk about leading our people from their strengths. You just said about it. We just talk a little bit about situational leadership. We talk about that we have to find our team's strengths to make them do what we want them to do and what is good for the company. But as leaders, I can tell you that was not always that I faced or that I just was with leaders that was looking for themselves to do the leadership the way they believe would be right, or using their strengths, using their roots. So I think you bring extremely important concept and extremely important branding to your what you do, because we are all the time thinking I have to lead my team using a strengths finder, disc, a billion different tools. But how about me as a leader? Am I leading from my root?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, really, if we start to understand, am I leading by my values? Am
Mm-hmm.
I leading with my experiences, whether they're good or bad? Am I bringing them in
Mm-hmm.
to what can really help this team? The reality is every single person has strengths, weaknesses. We also have these quirks about us. We have our experiences that are good and bad. How about if
Mm-hmm.
we show up with that every day
Yep.
and not have to put on a facade of something that isn't real?
Yeah.
And so if we use the term, I want to lead authentically, but I'm not sure how many of us truly show up and truly lead in an authentic, genuine way. So if you saw me on the street, do you connect with who I am because I'm not a completely separate person? Or do you still
Yes.
see a little bit of me, even if you ran into me outside of work?
Yeah. Yeah. And how do you believe I should see you? You would be the same?
I would hope so. I would
Yeah.
hope so. I mean, obviously, if you're with your friends, you might be
Yeah, more
a little
relaxed.
bit more relaxed. But I would hope that I at least show up pretty much the same and you recognize me, and all of a sudden you don't meet me on the street and go, wow, that's not the same person that I saw
Yeah.
in the office 2 days ago or a week ago, or it's not the same instructor that I have at Oakland University. Now all
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden this is a completely different person. That's a stranger. I wouldn't want that much of a disconnection with who I am.
I love that you brought this because I think this is not just helpful to our teams and our companies and to the whole world to be authentic, but also for our own sake, our own mental health, our own physical health, because when you have to change, I don't know, the way you behave or change everything that you know, everything that you are inside the company, and then you just say, "Oh, okay, outside the company, now I can be myself." This is not healthy at all, and it's not sustainable.
Well, it's not. And when we think about, you and I have talked a lot about being inclusive, right?
Yes.
And if we think about how are we inclusive with people in the workplace, one of them is, can someone show up and be who they are?
Oh, yeah.
And all of a sudden, we're tapping into just different strengths and different things about people that we didn't even know they had. But if they have to be guarded, or if they have to show up not really representing themselves, it's not going to allow for an inclusive company and an
Yes.
inclusive team and environment.
Yes. And I can't avoid to just turn our conversation into diversity and inclusion, because as you said, we talked about this a million times, and I have my personal experience being an outsider, being someone from Brazil working in the United States, and then I experienced this difference between diversity and inclusion. And because we always put this together, and I learned a lot from you because you were with many DNI, diversity and inclusion initiatives.
Right.
And we also have here a great person. I think Sarah is with us here. She's here. Look at this. Sarah is here, and Sarah used to work with us and work mainly with Candy in diversity and inclusion initiatives. So, what can you say to people about the difference between, especially people here who are leading others in a diverse or is planning to lead people in a diverse environment? How can play the difference? What is the difference between diversity and inclusion?
All right, Tashi, you have me there. So I'm going to cover a couple of things. First thing is, I'm going to
Please.
tell Sarah it was great at diversity and inclusion,
The
and
best.
probably if any company out there is looking for someone that is passionate about it, about it, I would say reach out to Sarah Niemeyer,
Yeah.
because I saw her name pop up and she really, really had a heart for it, and I thought it was amazing. So I had to start with that since you showed me her name and we're talking about this topic. As far as diversity and inclusion, anybody can do the research on it and they can say, okay, there are these different elements to diversity. And if you bring diversity into your company, then automatically inclusion will follow. Or if you're inclusive, then diversity will follow. There's so much research. There's just so much I could get into. What I will share with you is just based on my experience.
Okay.
And rather than get into technical terms that will be debated and everything else, I think it's easier to go based off of what is my experience and what is my viewpoint. My viewpoint is within teams that I've been a part of and teams that I have worked in, I value diversity of personalities, people, ethnicities, race, thought, perspectives, just everything, culture, all of that comes in. And so I appreciated that aspect of diversity, which is pretty much everything. Things you see,
colorful.
Absolutely. Just everything that comes with a person when they show up. So that part of diversity I appreciate. Where I feel inclusion comes in is when you actually don't just say, I appreciate it, but you leverage people to really show up and utilize that every single day without feeling like I can't be myself. I can't lean into my culture, or I can't lean into who I am, or my experiences, or my race, or my ethnicity, or my background. All of a sudden, I have to hide parts of me. That's when inclusion doesn't take place.
Oh, yeah.
So I found that really leaning into that and trying the hardest to find people who did not think, look, or act like me to be a part of my team helped me to have successful teams. I wouldn't want it any other way, although it takes longer for them teams to get up to speed.
Yeah.
I know that through my experience, it was that much more successful.
Yeah, and thank you for that. We have a question here, but I want to finish this thought, and then we can come back to diversity and inclusion, plus leading from our roots, because in my perspective, there's everything to do, because we were talking about being ourselves. If you just jump in now, we were talking, Candy and I, about leading from your roots and being yourself all the time inside the company and outside the company. If you meet us outside the company, you wish to see the same person as your colleague inside the company. And then we are talking about the difference between, in Candice's perspective, the difference between diversity and inclusion. And I must agree with you, especially as I told you, because I live this diversity and inclusion situation myself. And I believe the thing is sometimes companies are looking forward, and I know a lot of people here that it's just with us here on this live, and it's going to just watch this video after. They work in Brazil in many companies that are looking for to be more diverse, and not just ethnicity. That Brazil, we don't have a lot of expats working in the companies, but we have many different cultures, we have many different backgrounds. But leaders cannot forget to be inclusive, the way you said. And I have my experience with you, and again, being someone from outside the country, how you were doing exactly what you said, creating a team very different from each other. And we had a very different team, people from different backgrounds and even different languages, and myself being from a different country. And then you gave us the opportunity to show up, as you said, and then is when inclusivity comes up, because it's beautiful to see when you walk through the corridors, a lot of people wearing different clothes with different skin colors, but are they really being engaged and in different projects, or are they really being used the way they should? And especially leaders, are they leading from their roots?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So let me bring the question here. It's from Mikas. How do you think this pandemic will influence the leadership culture of the organizations?
Wow. So I truly feel that companies and leadership really needs to shift and focus on the employees. Before we could maybe hide from what was important and not focusing on the employees as much, now all of a sudden our employees are working from different locations. They're working from
Yeah,
home. So what I think really needs to happen is that companies and leaders need to embrace how to adapt, how to manage change, how to lead with emotional intelligence, how to delegate and trust, and really lean into all of these things. I would say there is much more opportunity to really hone in on their people skills right now. If they don't practice these things, people aren't going to be engaged, and at some point the world will shift, right?
yes.
And they might be keeping people now because people are fearful of maybe
Changing
what's going to
jobs.
happen to the economy, and
Mm-hmm.
so they're not going to leave right now. But at some point they may not be able to keep them and keep them engaged and maintain them if they don't build their people skills.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And thank you, Mika, for this question because just I had a lot of epiphanies while Candy you were talking. Because when we are at the office, we have the benefit, or maybe we just lay on the ability to see people working, to see the people performing, or even if you are not this servant leadership, to control people much more. And sometimes because we see people doing tasks, we are not paying attention on how they do tasks. And
Mm-hmm.
now we have to focus on how they do tasks and how
Absolutely.
these people are, if they have the tools to perform the way their strengths are prepared to. So this is what you're saying, right?
Yes, absolutely.
So I think when you say that in every difficulty relies on opportunity, I am the kind of person who doesn't believe in coincidence. And I
Mm-hmm.
think for leaders who want to be really leading from their roots or being servant leaders, this pandemic will give the opportunity to these people to really test it out,
Mm-hmm.
their leadership skills. And
Yeah,
coaching comes playing a very good part on it.
absolutely. I think the other thing that we just have to be cautious of is at a point in time like this, a lot of companies will think that leadership development isn't important. And I would say we have to continue to focus on it. It looks different on how we can develop our leaders, but if all of a sudden we have stopped putting focus on that, they're still leading people. As a company, we cannot lose sight of that. And I think it's just absolutely critical that companies step back and really focus on what's important. It's not just about the business and the task, it's about how do their leaders lead other people
Yeah.
during this time, and how do I continue to help them get better at what they need to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I think now, and if you could give some tip to someone who are looking to, let's say, let me give you the context where my thoughts are going. I just imagine now someone who were much more an operational leader, much more
Mhm.
connected to people doing tasks and not developing people to do better their tasks or being independent, micromanaging. So when I think about this leader, I imagine this person can be completely lost at this point because they don't have the same ability to do what we just said, controlling people if they are sitting in their desks, if they went to have a coffee a million times during the day. So what kind of tip you would give to these people who are not who doesn't have the tool to lead from distance?
Yeah. I would say there's a lot of different things they can do online right now. The great thing is there are a lot of companies that have been offering like free webinars, free courses. That's only a small percentage of something though. I would say coaching absolutely is important to understand why was it that they felt the need to actually micromanage. What is it that made them feel insecure about work getting done? Have they maybe had some trust breakdown in the past? There's a lot of coaching questions. I could go a million
Yeah,
places with one,
we could stay
but
here.
I would say coaching is really important to understand if that's the type of leader you were and you're now feeling very uncomfortable with how do I get the work done without having my thumb on it every day.
Yeah.
It's good to reach out and just talk to someone else to have them help you just start to understand who you are and maybe how you can work differently as a leader.
Yes, yes. I gotta tell you that everybody knows that I love coaching, and I think you're bringing that coaching can be the tool. It's amazing because we have been talking this past minutes about again leading from our roots and understanding the way we like to lead and working on our strengths and then helping people to find their strengths. And then when we think about coaching, now that you brought the thing that why I have to micromanage, why I have to be close to the people, what kind of need I need to fulfill when I am so close to these people physically. I think coaching would be perfect. Just I am kind of suspicious, but I think discovering why you behave the way you behave, or what would be your root in terms of being a leader would be the best way to don't suffer and don't make your team suffer. Because I believe here in the US and in Brazil the same, we are going to be working from home for a long time to come.
Right.
Right. So we are almost ending. And I just wanted to ask you about Oakland University. I mentioned, and you mentioned that you taught and you're still teaching. I don't know if you are teaching now online, but tell us about your experience being a teacher, a professor actually here, and a
Yeah.
leader at the same time. It's different than just to be a professor.
I think so. First, I would say that I love teaching at the university. One of the things I've always told my students is that I did that because it was my passion. And just they also energize me and they give me fresh perspective. We can
Yes.
sometimes get in a corporate environment and we can get closed off to viewpoints and differences from the way that we think every day. And by being in a college environment and being with students, I just find I learn as much from them as they could hopefully learn from me.
Mm-hmm.
And I will tell you, I am still teaching. It does look different, especially because I love being able to teach in the classroom. I'm more of an experiential instructor, and I really like to have them practice and reflect and gain insight and have a lot of conversation. I love the word why in my classes. I use it all the time, but because I don't want to come in and just give the answers, I want to
Yeah.
understand why are they thinking the way they're thinking? What experiences have they had that have gotten to the point of them thinking that way? So this semester, this fall semester, will look completely different. Both of my classes in the fall are fully online,
Okay.
which is different for me. I've taught some that were partially online in the past, but this is the first time that I will be teaching both classes in the fall fully online, including a team development class, which will be quite interesting, but having them learn how do I understand how to work in a team, but I'm going to do it all virtually.
Yes.
So it will be interesting just to see how the semester goes, and I'm excited because it is something new, and I'm just looking at creative ways to engage them.
Mm-hmm. And I imagine that being a professor gives you the opportunity to be with young people, the future generations, the youth people. And I am just curious to ask you, and then I'm going to connect two of our subjects here today. Do you believe these young people who are just joining the workforce, are they more diverse and inclusive and also more as people who are going to lead by their roots?
Hmm. It's a great question, right? It's making a general assumption.
Mm-hmm.
I would say I have found that in the classes that I've had, they're more open to different viewpoints. You always
Mm-hmm.
have a mixture in the class, but I would say over the last few years, I have just seen a lot of the students just being more open to ideas and thoughts and perspectives that are not just like theirs. I'm hoping that helps them kind of show up with who they are, but they've had a lot that has happened. If you're thinking of a younger generation, and I'm fortunate to have a mixture of generations that are in my classes,
Mm-hmm.
but those that are in younger generations, they've had some very unique things that are shaping who they are and things that have happened in their lives. And I'm hoping that it helps them lean into it and show up authentically with who they are every day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you. And let me ask you this. What are your plans for the future with the Root Leadership? What do you have planned?
What do I have planned? It's a new journey. I've just been at it a couple of months, but my hope is that I am really able to get into a variety of different companies. The great thing is I have a ton of manufacturing experience. I've been out and I've done some things in the universities and also used to do some work in banking and also insurance companies. So I'm hoping that I have the ability to tap into some of those different things and really help leaders understand who they are and how they want to show up. And that they can build successful teams. So I really want to tap quite a bit into the coaching at some point. The workshops and a lot of other things will come about, which I know will happen, but I'll just give it some time with everything that's going on in the world. But really focused on how do I grow this coaching business? Long-term goals. I see many coaches that can work as a part of Root Leadership that has that same passion. And so if I look 3, 5, 10 years down the road, I definitely see it growing and expanding. But coaches that want to lead from who they are and actually go out and help others.
Yeah, I can visualize your team of coaches being very diverse.
Yeah.
And this would be just amazing if you just can let them lead from their roots and help people to do the same. I used to say that I think you heard my motto before, changing the world one person at a time. And
Mhm.
I think coaches does that, and you are going to do that. So I want to ask you your final thoughts. And if you want to say something, do you want to just close our conversation?
I just want to say thank you, Tachi. I sit back and you and I have had an instant connection from the day that you came into the interview.
Yes, you interview me.
And I loved connecting with you, and we share some backgrounds that are very similar and
Yeah.
how we were raised and different things. And for me, it's just been such a joy to be a part of this with you. I'm thankful to call you my friend, and just am humbled and honored that you actually had me on here. And I'm excited to see where your journey goes.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate you being so generous with me always since the day one. And with this, with my volunteer, just a live show, TATI Talk, to come here to show your experience to my public. I hope people from Brazil was able to understand you and also our colleagues here from the US. And I want to say thank you. Thank you very much. And then I'll leave you and then I'm going to close our live today. Thank you very much, Candy.
Thank you. Bye.
Talk to you soon. Hey guys, we are ending our conversation today. I am very honored and happy to have you here. Maybe you are going to watch this later, but I want to tell you that I am working very hard to have this translated, to have subtitles in Portuguese, or in my Portuguese live to have subtitles in English. because as Candy and we were talking, we want to be inclusive. Of course, my life is very diverse because I have people who speak English and Portuguese, and who knows, maybe I am bringing someone to talk Japanese, although I don't understand anything about Japanese, but we want to be inclusive. So to be inclusive, I ask you please to just subscribe on my channel. You are going to just look down a little and then please click on subscribe, because I need to achieve a certain amount of people following me to be able to capture voice here on YouTube. And next week, we have this guy here, Lord Wellington Lordello. He works in marketing, and he's going to talk to us about how can we live in this new normal, being the new better. How can you use technology and marketing tools to be in a new better, not just a new normal. Now I'm just changing to Portuguese, guys, to just tell to people who speaks Portuguese what we are going to do next week. Gente, muito obrigada por participarem. Espero que vocês tenham gostado e que tenham, assim, aproveitado o máximo possível. Por favor, se inscreva aqui no meu canal, porque é através de mais seguidores que eu vou conseguir colocar legendas nas minhas lives. Candy e eu estávamos falando sobre diversidade e inclusão. Diversos nós já somos, nós temos falantes de inglês e português vindo para nossas lives, mas nós queremos ser inclusivos. E inclusivos significa que eu vou legendar para você que não está tão bom assim com seu inglês ou não teve oportunidade de aprender a língua, possa aproveitar o conteúdo das pessoas que vêm aqui falar inglês. E da mesma forma, para você que vai vir ser entrevistado aqui em português, as pessoas que falam inglês não entendem o português, poderem aproveitar da sua entrevista, da sua participação também. Semana que vem, eu tenho esse lindo rapaz aqui, Wellington Lordello, mais conhecido como Lord, porque ele é um Lord. Ele trabalha com marketing, ele é um líder em marketing. Ó, a minha Siri falando comigo. Ele trabalha com marketing e ele vai vir falar pra gente que, ao invés de novo normal, ele acredita num normal melhor. Então a ideia é aprender como a tecnologia e o marketing pode ajudar a gente a ter um novo melhor, não um novo normal. Então vejo vocês segunda-feira que vem, mesma bate-hora, mesmo bate-canal. Muito obrigada. Thank you very much, guys. See you next week, the same time, same place. Please subscribe to my channel. See you.